All right, everybody, what's going on? After a week off, we're back to Unfiltered Truth. I'm your host, Eric Smith. I'm here with my co-host, my partner in crime, James Shook, and we got a good one scheduled for you this week. What are we talking about, James?
This week, wow, censorship. Censorship could be a really good, wide-ranging topic for us. A lot of censorship going on, or a lot of alleged censorship, and we'll try to jump into this. I'm not sure we'll be able to stay away from politics today, though.
Yeah, we might break our promise on the no politics thing today. So if you don't want to hear it, we're going to give the pre-warning now that make it a little political today. So we got some sponsors to talk about. We got some new gear and stuff in the back, new backgrounds. So let you cover that as well.
Yeah, so we're going to give a shout out to our sponsors, guys over at Peach State Printing. They've provided some stuff to us. We're going to be exposing a little bit more of that in the upcoming episodes. But if you guys have any printing needs, screen printing, stationery, legal docs, banners, you name it, check out the folks over at Peach State Printing. That's the number for those guys, 770-439-0335. That's 770-439-0335. And these guys cover everything under the sun. They do promotional items, you name it. Go to the website, check it out. They do a lot of stuff. They handle a lot of printing for my personal needs as well as my business. So love those guys over there. Give Jason a shout out. He's a good guy. North Cobb Spine and Nerve. North Cobb Spine and Nerve provided us some very generous donations recently. And for any of your chiropractic needs, physical medicine, go ahead and give you the number for those guys. It's 678-574-5678. Should be coming up on the screen there. We've got www.northcobbspine.com. And if you guys have any, like I said, any physical medicine needs, chiropractic work, they do all kinds of different treatments, decompression, whatnot. Reach out to the ladies over there. They're a great bunch of physicians.
Awesome. And then let's talk about these amazing flags that both of us had. We got to get these from an amazing craftswoman, and give her a shout out real quick.
Yeah. So if you look in the background of Eric's frame there, you're going to see the pledge and the 1776 Betsy Ross flag. Very custom design on that flag, as well as the one you'll see behind me, the Second Amendment version of that. These are really nice custom artwork, woodwork pieces, very affordable price. Again, it's a very bespoke item. Can't say enough good things about them. If you can't tell from the video that we have here, when you see them in person, they're amazing. Give a shout out to Chantel for those. I'm going to give you a email address as well for that. That's Chantel at chantelcreations.com. That's SHANTEL at SHANTEL creations.com.
All right, well, let's get to it, buddy. We got some live viewers again, as always. We encourage you guys and girls to comment, ask questions. If you have something that's topic related you want us to specifically address, please bring it up. So I'll let you get into it, James.
Yeah, so talking about censorship today, and we definitely want to get the comment section moving on this one. As we throw out some various examples here, we'll look for the feedback from the viewers, and maybe we can kind of just link on to what they are asking, or if you guys have some content that you want to provide to that, we'll see if we can incorporate it into the show as we go along. As far as censorship goes, so we've been seeing a lot of it lately, and it's not just some of the things that we've been seeing over the last several years. We can jump right into it. Let's talk about the big story recently in certain circles is going to be the doctors that came out recently with a hydroxychloroquine, and I think they were actually broadcasting a few other points and topics in there. We'll try to get into covering some of that as we go along, but
sure.
These are videos, I guess, that some doctors had made, and they did them actually on a live stream. I want to say that one of the initial coverages was Breitbart News that covered it, and was immediately taken down. Well, I want to say it was up for maybe 5 hours. It was taken down by Facebook. And this is an example, I think, of just not letting the public be able to decide the information or decipher the information for themselves. And you can give me your thoughts on that as well.
Well, absolutely, and that's a huge problem. So one thing I'm big, and a big phrase that I use a lot in my life is an echo chamber, right? So an echo chamber, which people tend to make their social media an echo chamber. Well, what is that? It's basically where you say something and then everybody agrees with you, no matter what your stance is, no matter what you know about it, just because that's what you believe. And people typically surround themselves with people that believe the same things they do. And I think a lot of this is caused by social media, especially by social media companies censoring specific things. We've been censored before. A lot of our viewers may not know this through advertising dollars. You and I threw some money at one of our early videos we did, and Facebook shut it down simply because they said we were advocating owning weapons, which we obviously both have guns in the background, so we'll probably get censored again. And they get shadow banned. But kind of come to full circle on my echo chamber comment, kind of what you hit on the hydrochloroquine thing. You and I aren't virologists. We don't know. We're not educated to know for sure if hydrochloroquine works, but we don't know if ventilators work or any of this other stuff. The important part, and I think the point you're trying to make, is that we need to be able to see everything from every side. You know what I mean? So when you have Facebook and the government saying that we're not going to allow you to hear this point of view, that's a problem. And I'll bring up one extreme real quick and let you hit on it. It's a sick extreme, but I'll bring it up, and I think it's something that needs to be seen so people know what's actually out there. Recently, there's a video circulating on the internet of a woman in Great Britain, I think somewhere like that, giving a conference on how pedophilia and child molestation is a sexual orientation. It's disturbing. It's sick. It's all these things. But there's people that are like, we need to ban this from Facebook. No, you don't, because you need to know what's out there. You need to see that there are, in fact, those sick people out there saying these things, thinking these things are okay, so you can educate yourself and educate your children to stay the hell away from them. So I'm off my soapbox, so I'll let you hit on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, even going back to when we're talking about physicians that are coming out with information that they claim are results that they've had inside their own practices, and these are people that obviously claim to be dealing directly with the patients and achieving some pretty extraordinary results. It's medicine's a practice, and medicine is widely recognized as that's why they call it practicing medicine. It's not something that's completely perfected. It's not something that you have to have 100% results in certain environments to say that something has a great likelihood of working, or in this situation, you're kind of preventing the public from being able to make their own decisions. And I think one of the biggest things about it is, in this specific case, is that if you're not allowing the public to see the information and potentially go at least talk to their physician about it, it may be something that they never seek out. And it could be something that is potentially life-saving, as these physicians have noted. Now, can we know that for sure? No, but we don't know anything for sure. In a technical way, you don't know necessarily, I would say 90% of anything that you put in your mouth from anywhere. You don't know exactly how it, or potentially what it could be in it or whatnot. And of course, things have labels on them and ingredient labels and whatnot, but that doesn't always mean that you're getting every piece of information that goes along with it. Yet we trust a lot of these things. So when you talk about a platform so as vast, we'll say, as Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or some of these larger scale social media platforms, when you talk about something that vast, and you have individual user input, which is ultimately going to be opinion, right?
Yep.
So what I'm going to say is that the guys that are Facebook fact checking, or the guys that are coming in to censor some of these items, they're using just as much opinion in it as they're claiming that the source that they're banning is using. And to me, that's troublesome, because again, medicine is a practice. And if you have doctors that are claiming that what they are practicing is providing very positive results, then for you to come out and say, we have to take this off because this is something that we cannot verify as 100% truth or 100% exactly how we're being told that it is, then you'd have to take almost everything off of the internet.
Well, and there you go. And I want our audience to try something real quick. All right, so this is an example of censorship I want you guys to see live and on the air. So again, I'm not saying that I have the cure. I'm not saying this is the cure. Okay, I'm just saying it's an option and us to listen to. So I want to obviously preface everything with that. Google Yale scientist COVID-19. Nothing will pop up. I had to go through my friend's Facebook page that I knew he had an article posted. I had to go physically to his page to find this article. The gentleman that wrote this article and gave this opinion is one of the head epidemiologist professors at the Yale School of Public Health. He is far more qualified than you or I to give a theory, to give his idea of treatment or anything like that. But you can't readily find that. You can't Google that. If, James, if you came to me and you said, Eric, I saw this article, man, on this Yale scientist, this Yale teacher gave, the speech on, how this medicine could potentially benefit us. You can't find it. And that's a problem because Google, all they got to do is flip a switch, take the metadata out, or not metadata, but the keywords out and just squash it. And that's a problem. If you're not allowed to form your own opinion, I mean, those of us that are parents, I've got kids currently in public school. They just went back to school Monday, and I formed my opinion based on things that I read. Am I right? I don't know. I can't say that I am, but I was at least able to form my own opinion because I did my own research and was able to do all these things because of being surrounded with the right people. But you can't simply go to Google and, search something as easy as Yale scientist COVID-19. That article will not pop up. If one of our audience members gets it to pop up, let me know, but you won't find it. I've gone back and verified he's the real deal. He's a real scientist. He's not this crack scientist like they were talking about with the news conference you were talking about. And specifically, they were harping on that black lady saying she said something about demon DNA or alien DNA is being used in treatments or something. So everybody's hammering her for that. That's fine. But, this is a different person, completely unrelated to these people giving an opinion. So that's a problem if it's being censored.
Yeah. And I mean, if you want to dig back through anybody's past and find something that you can cling on to try to discredit what they're doing today, you'll probably be able to do so in many cases. However, the physicians, for me, what I do is I try to look at what would be the cause of this, or what would be what is the goal they're trying to achieve if they were just lying about this, right? So you have
Right.
physicians coming out, they're talking about a fairly inexpensive medicine, something that they're not necessarily paid to promote. And, what would be the malice intent behind it? They're actually out there trying to kill thousands of people. Just for what cause? Just so they can come out publicly, say something, deceive a lot of people, and get the public ultimately to contaminate or poison themselves with something. And we know that's just not true. I mean, hydroxychloroquine's been used for 65, 70 years. Anyone can cross-reference that. I mean, these are just factual things. No one's been in an uproar about its safety. As a matter of fact, there has been uproar about its safety. It's known as one of the safer drugs on the market, and it has been for a very, very long time. It's been used for countless people that move themselves in and out of overseas excursions, whether it be military, whether it be just business trips or whatnot. I mean, this is a widely used drug, and I don't want to get too married to one specific item here, because in general, I think the broader scale, we're talking about censorship. But when you have something that has that kind of background, to just try to discredit it all of a sudden and say, oh, well, that's not proven to work in this case. Well, these guys are saying that, yes, it is proven to work in this case. And some of the so-called professionals on this topic are openly admitting that they don't really know anything about COVID-19, or that it's such a new, novel virus that you couldn't tell. You just have to learn as you go along. And so to discredit something that a lot of physicians are claiming that they're having real results from is, to me, it's just a little reckless, and I think it's negligent also.
Yep. Chantel, she said, thanks for shout out. Happy you guys like the flags. And obviously, like I just said, they're amazing details, unbelievable. They really don't do it justice. Y'all check out the pictures I put up on our page. I got kind of up close on the stars. I mean, the stars were the thing on the flags to me that were the most just amazing detail, unbelievable, and definitely worth every penny. To hit on what you're saying, yes. And we can go to, hey, let's hit another topic that's been censored. It's the most sensitive topic in America right now. We're going to talk about George Floyd. I'm not going to get into right, wrong, indifferent. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the fact that just now body camera footage is getting released. Well, why is this just now getting released? And I know a judge ordered that it had to be sealed or whatever, but why are we doing that? Our country was burning to the ground based on what the media was reporting and based on assumptions that were made off pieces of video. As Lance LaRusso and what Witnesses says, as Lance, our last guest, kind of hit on a couple weeks ago, the news they're on a time crunch. They're not on a factual crunch. They don't have to get it right. And they're going to report the things just to get it out there as quickly as possible. Right. And this video just now gets released, and now they're doing an investigation to say, oh my God, who released this video to the public? This is unbelievable, because frankly, it changes a lot of things with the case, and we could get into the legalities of that. Maybe we'll talk about it in another episode, but it's being kept from the American people. And my question is why are we keeping that from the people so they can make an educated decision? It may not be the most popular one, and it may not, you know what I mean? But it's facts, and people need to know and have all the facts before all this misinformation gets spread, and we literally burn our country to the ground and start killing people and vilifying a whole career of folks over it.
Yeah. Well, and before we have a lot of people responding with, or before they jump right to, well, it's because there's a pending investigation going on, and you don't want to, taint the evidence or whatnot, or the opinions of the public. And you don't want to do that both directions, right? You don't want to taint it by withholding information. You don't want to taint it by putting out too much information. But a great example would be, if you want to cross-reference that, would be the Rayshard Brooks case in Atlanta, where they released the body cam footage, I believe, the next morning.
Yep.
So, and the law enforcement actually released that. So I don't believe the DA's office or law enforcement had any problem with releasing that. And so if the argument is going to be made for one, it's going to have to be made for the other. And I just don't think that holds up,
Well, absolutely. You made a great point. So yeah, you don't want to taint a jury or anything like that. Well, let's go back to what started this whole thing in the first place. There was cell phone video of this incident taking place that absolutely sways the story to one side. And that's a problem. People need to make educated decisions. They don't need to have just one side of it. I think any liberal, any Republican, any of the stuff that's campaigning, their ads, let it flow freely to the public. Let people make their own decisions. These fact checkers on Facebook drive me crazy. Who are they? What do they do? What are their qualifications? Who are you to tell me that this treatment or this politician's wrong? What are you, an epidemiologist? Are you a virologist? Do you work for the CDC? They're saying on Facebook that this one specific topic, it doesn't go with what the WHO says. Okay, that's fine, but I didn't know Facebook and WHO, I didn't know that had to be an agreement. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, and people's going to say that's the gold standard in everything. I mean, there's, breakthroughs happen all the time at many other medical facilities, many other medical labs, universities. And if we're only listening to what they know at the time, and these institutions are claiming that they're still learning about the virus, so they're practicing medicine just like anyone else is practicing medicine. And if they're in a situation where maybe you're not attempting to use certain products, and someone else might be using those products and getting a different result or getting a positive result out of it, I don't see any reason why that should be shielded from the public. I mean, ultimately, your physician will be the one to have to prescribe it, and I'm not aware of too many physicians where you just walk in and demand what you want prescribed, and they just prescribe it to you. I mean, maybe some of that goes on here and there, but ultimately, your physician should be the one that's in charge of your prescription, and they're not going to give it to you, if they feel like it's unsafe for you. If you guys, come together in agreement that maybe it's unsafe or whatnot. Now, I know some people will argue with what they get prescribed from time to time. They'll either not fill the prescription, or they'll fill the prescription, they won't take the medicine, and maybe they don't even mention it to their doctor, or maybe they do bring it up to their doctor and the doctor doesn't provide the prescription at all. But that's all part of how we work ourselves through things. And ultimately, we live in a day and age where everyone wants to talk about the individual has, these respective rights between himself and his physician, and things need to be taken care of between the consenting adult and their physician. And then in these cases, they want to take these physicians, just completely discredit it. And I think it's reckless on a broader scale, because it may prevent other physicians that haven't gotten into this type of this usage, we'll say, of this particular product. It may kind of taint their opinion of it and then cause them to not look forward into it. So when you have these very reputable places putting out things that might not necessarily be true and that are very opinionated, it could lead to something much greater, and it could lead to human life loss.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's a huge problem. And Diane just shared a link now that I'm sitting here looking at it, and I'll share it with everybody to a public figure on Facebook. One of the doctors that was talking about the response to Corona and things like that, and his videos were taken down multiple times. This is the guy's page right here that you can check out. And it just talks about a lot of stuff. And if you look right here, the love it or hate it, you need to watch my video. That's one of the doctors that's talking about the response to COVID, and his stuff keeps getting taken down. Again, why? What is an opinion? What is a person saying something that is not saying go kill anybody? It's not saying commit a crime. It's not saying this. Why are we taking this stuff down? That's what I don't understand. Because I'm sorry, if you want to talk about, like we hit on the pedophilia subject, there's that stuff all over the internet. I did many operations, again, when I was a police officer with the FBI Child Crimes Task Force, where we were combating human trafficking. It's called the Match Task Force. And you can easily Google on the internet trying to find, people that are looking for those kind of things. So we're not censoring that and taking that off the internet, but we're taking stuff, written by doctors and said by doctors off the internet because that's bad. That's what doesn't make sense. And I would encourage anybody to take a step back, no matter your stance on this, and ask yourself, why is that?
Yeah, and what's the real definition of a cure? I mean, has anyone been cured of COVID yet?
Right.
Some studies that the CDC and the WHO have put out say that that patients have recovered from. They use the word recovered a lot. They in certain cases they've said, what does a cure mean? Okay, a cure means that I don't have the issue anymore.
Right, you can never get sick from it.
And ultimately, if I'm being prevented from having something that I believe is going to help me, and something that my doctor believes is going to help me, and then they have a certain amount of evidence behind that to support it, then I'm all for the ability, at least for the option to be there for the individual to have the treatment, should their doctor prescribe that treatment.
Absolutely. And I want to share another video. So, and this kind of goes along, it just happened today. Share a video with everybody real quick. Ignore the website that is from. So this happened in Beirut today. Watch this video. Just keep watching. Absolutely scary stuff. Scary. And you know what the media is saying it is? What the narrative is out there right now, that explosion was? A fireworks factory. It could be. I don't know. But, a fireworks factory, come on, man. That doesn't look like a fireworks factory to me. Go Google the Beirut blast, Lebanon attack, bombing, things like that. There's so many videos that it's not saying it's a nuclear weapon or anything like that, because regular explosions can cause a mushroom cloud. But if that's a fireworks factory, man, I need to get some of those fireworks for the next 4th of July, because that's crazy.
Yeah, and what's the likelihood that it wouldn't be pretty well known in that area, that Silos area right there, that there was a fireworks factory. Now I've heard reports that it's fireworks storage. Right. When synchronizing that many fireworks to go off at one time, that's a heck of a feat. I think fireworks experts here in the States have been trying to synchronize those things for decades and can't get it perfected. So, again, we don't know what that blast was. I'm not saying it was or wasn't fireworks. But no, I mean, the only information that you're going to have on it is the information that's coming from the ground itself. It's coming from the actual site, and very similar to what we're talking about with doctors and their patients. So, if we can't get that information out to try to decide for ourselves what it is, or at least to have, some kind of healthy debate and discussion on trying to sift through the evidence to come up with a very likely source of or a cause for it, for lack of a better word, I guess. Then if you don't have that discussion, or you don't have the evidence available to support that discussion, then what are we really doing? We're always just being told something, and we're being fed something. And whether people want to think I'm using that word "fed" to the extreme, you can think that if you want to, but either way, when you watch a program on television, it's called a program for a reason. And you are being fed someone's narrative one way or the other, or someone's spin or someone's take on that event. Why not have multiple takes on the event? Why not have multiple scenarios?
Well, and I think, the big problem with, because obviously the pandemic, the outbreak, all that stuff's a big topic. I think a lot of people are afraid once they've taken a stance to maybe deviate from it, maybe say, you know what, I thought this at first and I got more information, so maybe I've changed my response. But a lot of people are afraid to admit that they were not even necessarily wrong, that they weren't all the way right. And people are so worried about changing their opinion. And that's why they typically always go back to, you'll see it on, it's easy on social media to where somebody will link a story that fits their narrative, what they believe, and they'll link that. And the problem is when that starts getting put out en masse and forced down our throat with no opposing views, that's how the Nazis happened. 100%. Yes, I know they didn't have social media or Facebook, but they censored everything. They started taking away books and all these other things and taking away people's education. And the next thing you know, millions of Jews are getting killed. That's a huge problem.
Yeah, and it's we could argue, you could argue and say that in the United States, many people are of the belief that, well, it just couldn't happen because we're a more modernized society. And you got to understand with modernizing a society, you're also bringing about a more educated and you're given those that are in charge or those that are in control a lot more time to evaluate what they're dealing with. So they're going to obviously come up with solutions that fit their agendas. And I don't think it's any secret that there's agendas with everything. I mean, each political side of the aisle has its own agenda, no matter what. And anybody that wants to say that there's not a biased agenda from either side is they're just not living in the real world.
Well, and this was Rogan the other day on his podcast that a bunch of my friends have shared this, and I saw it, and I happen to love Rogan. I hope everybody can see that okay. It says, wrong. We'll close out of that. But it said, stupid people are outbreeding. I'm sorry, dumb people are outbreeding smart people at a fucking staggering pace. And that was Rogan that said that. And the problem is, it's because I think that the stuff's being shoved down people's throats and they're just going with it. And it's unbelievable that somebody's like, well, I saw this on the internet, it must be true. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've seen arguments on social media where people literally use memes to argue with each other and like argue their point without any factual basis. It's just like, it's mind blowing. And it's the public to me has just gotten dumbed down to the point now to where people are afraid to go do their own research, which is why I was so glad that my kids got to go back to school, because now they're around other people. They're getting to see all these things and getting to interact again and not being stuck behind a computer screen and being force-fed stuff on the internet. I mean, there's stuff on their video games now that's being forced down their throats. It's unbelievable that what people are being hammered with to fit a narrative. It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, well, I can give a real life example here, and this is on a much lighter topic, we'll say. But a couple of years ago, we were trying to promote a Facebook post with some really, really strong results from one of our fitness competitors. Mm-hmm. And it was showing a before and after from when she did, like the day she walked in the gym and signed up with us, all the way to the point where she had actually gotten on stage and competed in a bikini competition. And not only did we have the pics to prove it throughout her transition, we also actually had her on Facebook as an actual account that could be completely verified.
Right.
And countless amounts of other users on Facebook, which were some of our other customers inside the gym, some of her other peers, which completely it's easily verifiable. And sure. Facebook would not allow us to even pay to promote that ad. And the excuse that I was given for it was, this is not a typical result that most Americans would be able to achieve. So therefore, we want to save, essentially this is what was said, and I'm paraphrasing it. We want to save other people's feelings and maybe look out for them. If they're not able to achieve that kind of result, then we don't want them to feel bad about themselves for not being able to do that. And to me, that is absolutely breeds a society of failure.
Yeah, it breeds mediocrity 100%. And, you hit it perfect. And I happen to have a bunch of friends in the fitness industry as well. I own a supplement company along with one of my good friends. So we run across people in bodybuilding, figure competitions, powerlifting, all those things. I've actually had females that, were some of our athletes and people that were spokespeople for us that said some of their posts got taken down because the same exact things, they're unrealistic to normal people. Well, again, what's normal? So
that's an opinion in itself, right?
Right. So, okay. So you're saying being overweight's normal now, or being out of shape is normal? I mean, everybody's got their struggles. I understand that. And I'm not saying one person's better than the next, but again, you need to see and have goals, of ways of goals you can achieve. it's mind blowing to me how just dumbed down our society is. And I think it's kind of what Rogan was saying is it's just gotten to the point where we're okay with being mediocre, and it's a huge problem.
Yeah, well, our country seems to be moving more and more towards the idea that it's not set up so that the strong can't win. It's set up so that the weak can't fail. And
Yep.
when you have a society set up where the weak can't fail, you're going to just breed mediocrity, mediocrity all the way across the board. So,
Yeah, and that's kind of something we always run into, doing training and stuff like that. And law enforcement, going back to one of our first videos we ever talked about, is I always heard from certain places and certain things that, you have to teach the lowest common denominator. No, I want to teach the highest common denominator and hope that I bring the low ones up and not the high ones down. And anytime I said something like that, people would be like, wow, I didn't think about that. I'm like, yeah, let's not teach the lowest common denominator. Let's challenge people. And most times the academy staffs or the departments I was teaching at were very receptive to it because some of the stuff was advanced. But I'm like, if they don't grasp it fully, that's fine. If it's out of their league right now, that's fine. But they're going to be better when they leave here than when they came. The last thing I want is somebody that was here to be here when I'm done teaching, because I'm teaching to somebody that's way down below where you can't even see. It's mind blowing.
Well, it also takes away your expertise then as being an instructor or being a teacher in that field, right?
Correct.
If I have to, if let's say I go to school for 6 to 10 years additional to try to gain some kind of knowledge to teach to someone else, and the lowest person in the class is only able to understand, the first year education of that, and I have to teach down to that first year education, I've wasted 9 years of educating myself additionally beyond grade school, just to go into a field where I'm not able to share my expertise and try to. I mean, we always want to try to breed excellence, right? We do it in our jiu-jitsu classes as well. Of course, we have fundamental classes, but everything expands from there, and you have to keep evolving with anything that you do. And if there's once I've always put it this way, and especially in the fitness industry, right? And this goes back to your body being made up of mostly water. Sitting water will become stagnant, right? All you need to purify it is just get it moving a little bit. So.
Yep.
You always want to be striving forward. You always want to strive for excellence. You want to teach to strive for excellence. And, again, this all ties back into censorship, just because if you start limiting the viewpoints and you start limiting the creativeness of people in their minds to try to expand, reach out, see other things, take in new data, and try to decipher that data on their own and come up with their own conclusions, then you've really stifled, you stifled the creativity of the populace.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's part of the reason why you're seeing, the lack of American history being taught in schools these days. They're more going towards world history and stuff outside of America because they don't want to talk about a lot of why the independence and how we came to be an independent country, as independent as we can be right now. They don't want to talk about that, and it kind of goes along with both our flags that we have up, talking about the Second Amendment, talking about the pledge and all these other things that in some circles, what you and I have behind us is considered offensive. There are some things that will censor this. We may get shadow banned for this to where they're not going to outright ban our video, but they're going to take it out of the analytics and things like that to allow it to get out there because they're like, well, this doesn't really kind of go along with what we think. So we're going to kind of pull back on it. And that's a problem because our kids and our next generations need to know our history, good or bad. They need to be taught slavery, just like they need to be taught about, our independence, things that were horrible and things that were good. And that all needs to be taught so these kids can form well-adjusted opinions and grow. And it's just not being taught now in schools.
Yeah, and the longer we look in the past, the more we're going to breed more of it.
Yep.
If you keep living in the past day by day, you'll become quite predictable, and ultimately you'll just keep creating more of what's in the past. So if you look back at some of the past, you look at our nation's history. If you look into last week, you can probably look into 30 minutes ago. And you can find something that you would consider, with a negative connotation to it. If you keep standing back and dwelling on that and focusing all your attention on that, you're just going to create more of what's in the past. And if that past is something that you don't particularly care for, you're going to be creating a lot more of what you don't care for.
Well, exactly. And I think so, history repeating itself. If you don't learn from it, it'll repeat itself. And I think we're back on a cycle to that. It's something I was watching a movie the other day to kind of hit on this topic. I was watching The Highwaymen. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's about the Texas Rangers hunting Bonnie and Clyde. So they were hunting them. They were initially disbanded by, I forgot the governor's name of Texas at the time. It was a female, Ma something was her name. and she had disbanded the Texas Rangers. Sounds very familiar, doesn't it? Defunded the police department, got rid of them. Okay, so these two people, Bonnie and Clyde, they go on a rampage, robbing people, shooting police officers down in the street, gunning them down. It's all history, folks. So the Texas Rangers end up catching up to him. I believe is in Louisiana, where they actually caught him. They caught him, got in a shootout with him, and shot and killed him. Here's the funny thing: way back then, 20,000 people, 20,000 showed up to Bonnie's funeral. 15,000 showed up to Clyde's funeral. So it's funny, a lot of my conservative friends are like, well, I can't believe all these people are showing up to, this thug's funeral. And I'm not going to name anybody specific, but that's what I hear. Well, this guy, he was a horrible human being, and we're making, we're idolizing him. It's nothing new, folks. It's been going on since the 20s, 30s, and 40s. I think Bonnie and Clyde was in the 40s. And people don't understand that this has been happening for decades upon decades upon decades. And a lot of this goes down to, people not knowing their history, not being taught history, not being allowed to learn the history, because our government, the media, social media at this point kind of controls what we get to see. And that's a huge problem.
Yeah. And it's, it swiftly became our number one source of information as well. Yeah. So, and along with that, the money becomes a factor. Politics obviously are a wide, they're pretty much taken over social media, we'll say, especially during this time of the year or this time of this election season. So yeah, I mean, with this being the number one place to get information from, with it being the easiest, the most easiest access, we'll say, there's going to be a programming aspect to it. Whatever you continue to watch, if you're someone that watches all liberal networks, you're probably going to sway more liberal over time. Yeah. If you're someone that watches only far right stuff, you're going to be someone that sways, further to the right over time. And that's just it's just natural nature of the human being. However, if we could get more viewpoints out, because honestly, sometimes people just don't know. They'll see one side of a story, and it's widely. I think it's been touted off my entire life. I've heard people say this before, that you've got one side of a story, you've got another side of the story, and somewhere in the middle, you're going to have the truth. And what we're doing right now is we're taking that middle and we're forcing the truth to be on one side. And to me, it's not a fair way to broadcast. It's not a fair way to report, and it's a huge problem here in America.
Yep. And Danny, I see what you said about my mic being loud. Let me know if that improved it. I turned it down a little bit for you. I'm a little bit further back, so just let me know if that's any better, bud. Yes, you're 100% right. And it's unfortunate that that's where we're at. Let's talk about something else that was originally kind of censored and kind of taken off from mainstream media because it was a conspiracy theory. It was wrong. It was crazy. Epstein, Lolita Island, Lolita Express, this sex island where all these kids were. That was all censored and not reported in the mainstream media because, it was crazy. But I think a lot of it was because it involved our politicians. Now, if you look at what's going on with it, it's absolutely, we can say 100%. I think Epstein was 100% guilty at this point. And you see all these other people that were named, it's not too far-fetched to think that there's probably some truth to it. But because it didn't fit mainstream media's narrative, none of the networks really reported on it or have reported on it. And it's one of those things where people are like, these people that are talking about this and Pizzagate and all this other stuff are crazy. Are they? I mean, it's one of those things. You've got to be able to take in the information, look at the facts, look at what's going on, and make your own assumptions and get out of your echo chamber and challenge yourself to think about opposing views. Because my pastor gave a sermon on it when they've talked about it once, where everybody living in an echo chamber doesn't breed unity, right? Talking and sitting down with people that have opposing viewpoints of yours and working through them is what actually creates unity and gets all the people together. And censorship creates nothing but division, period.
Yeah. Well, also people that spoke up about the Tuskegee experiments, they were conspiracy theorists too, until the CIA came out and said that, no, it's absolutely true. And this was some many, many decades later. So, to always move forward, just accepting and swallowing everything that the media kind of throws at you without question is just a reckless way to live. And it's an isolated way to live. and it really restricts. It really shrinks your boundaries a lot as well.
Yeah, 100%. It does, and it's one of those things where we've got to educate ourselves. We cannot just take the narrative that's spit out there to you by the media and force fed down your throat and take it for the 100% truth. There's reasons why things are done the way they are. There's always a bigger picture to things. And, ask yourself with everything, at least I would encourage our listeners to do, ask yourselves why. Ask yourselves why James and I are talking about what we're talking about, why we're saying what you're saying. You know our backgrounds, so why are we talking about it? Go fact check what we say. If I say something you don't agree with, check us on it. If my mic's too loud, say something about it. Not going to bother me or hurt my feelings. It's just mind blowing to me that people get so easily offended and they want stuff taken down. And, you look at let's go to Mike Van Gundy, the Oklahoma State coach. Let's talk about him getting censored for a second. He wore an OAN shirt. I've never really looked at their news network. Supposedly it's a right-wing news network, a pro-Trump network, which I didn't know being pro or president was a bad thing. When I used to do search warrants all the time at work, I would run across, photos of presidents, specifically Obama on the wall. Didn't care. Okay. You want to idolize a president? Cool. I don't idolize Trump, but if you want to idolize a politician, that's your business. But because the man was wearing a shirt that didn't go along with the mainstream views or the popular views at the time, they were ready to fire the dude and take away all the accomplishments and all the stuff that he did. And he had to come out and apologize for wearing a shirt about his beliefs. That's mind blowing. He wasn't wearing a shirt that said KKK on it. He wasn't wearing a shirt that said, kill cops. He wasn't wearing anything offensive. It was a news network shirt. I find CNN offensive, but I don't expect somebody that, if they're a college football coach and that's what they want to wear, dude, it's your platform, use it. If you, into our people out here that are raising hell about the NFL and the NBA, MLB and stuff, if you don't like it, don't watch it. It's their platform to speak. This is my opinion because I believe in the First Amendment just as much as I do the Second and all the other ones. If they want to speak on it, they want to use that platform to get their message across, let them. But what I say that we have to have is the opposing viewpoints as well. The more, if you want to call them conservative or opposite viewpoints or, counterpoints to them, that stuff needs to be out there, and people need to be able to make their own decisions. And we don't need to vilify somebody or an athlete or a coach or a person because they simply believe something that doesn't agree with us. It's horrible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not sure that there's any debate anymore that there's conservative censorship, over conservative material. If there is a debate over that, I would love to know where that's going on at, because I think we've had so many examples, especially over the last 3 to 4 years. And you brought up a good point earlier when you spoke about, it's patriotic to support the president, regardless of who the president is. And look, people need to get over this. This isn't the first time that Democrats had a Republican win office, or Republicans had an opposing Democrat win office, and they didn't like the outcome of the election. And, traditionally in time, everyone's just dealt with it. It seems like this time around, there was this major push. And I have my own, ideas about why there was this major push for this particular president to, to try to discredit everything, to try to tarnish everything, to try to report on anything that is remotely negative, and not, try to promote anything that's positive or that's been done policy wise. And there has been a lot of stuff done policy wise. So, whenever becoming, or being patriotic, we'll say, became a crime, or that's probably about the same time that criminal activity became legal, I guess. So there we go.
Well, yeah, and it's, you want to look at, we can talk about that real quick too. So you look at all these news articles that are coming out. Oh my God, federal police are in the streets and blah, 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 blah. Folks, my friend Lance LaRusso talked about this on one of his posts, on one of his videos. In case you don't know, there's federal agents in every city. The DEA, the ATF, in any major city. Let me correct myself. In any major city, you have federal agents. The ATF, DEA, FBI, Homeland Security, Border Patrol, Customs. They're all there. They're all working cases. They're all there anyways. They're there protecting federal property. That's why they're there. Now, what I will say is, if Obama was doing this, you probably would see conservatives, which bothers me about our politicians, conservative politicians in particular, damning everything he was doing, just like we're having the liberal side damning everything our current president's doing, instead of educating the public and saying what the real facts are. All this outrage in New York City about these plainclothes officers, taking people into custody in unmarked vehicles. Guess what? I was one for 3 years. I can't tell you how many countless times I did it. It is common practice. You can't just drive around with a big giant billboard of a police car that says NYPD police on it with a blue light, a light bar and all these uniforms, and people are going to act normal without you there. It's like when your mom and dad are at home. You're going to behave yourself more in front of your parents than you do when you're away. Criminals do the same thing. They're criminals, and I'm just saying criminals here are like cockroaches. When the lights come on, they scatter and they vanish. But now when the lights are off and the police are gone, or so they think, that's when you see their true behavior and they come out and do stuff. And the narrative that's being pushed and the censorship to a point that's being done is creating this narrative and vilifying one group of people over something that's a common practice and done for a reason, instead of educating themselves on why it's done or having somebody on that maybe has an opposing viewpoint. They don't do it. You look at like Terry Crews when he went on CNN, he got blasted for saying what he had to say. And, it's like you said, people were like, well, trust the doctors, but not this one. Well, listen to, this black guy, or listen to black people about this issue, but not that black guy, because he doesn't agree with what we have to say. And all I'm saying that to say this: you have to be able to listen to points from both sides. It is the duty, in my opinion, of the media and social media to get all the viewpoints out there. They need to be using their powers for good and not for evil, not to grow their power. That's a problem.
Well, and just the idea that nowadays to try and, I guess, defend, or it really ends up being defense by omission, right? So you're going to have people that are not necessarily trying to defend the criminals, but by vilifying the police for actually doing justifiable work with criminals, in the end is starting to make heroes out of criminals. And I never thought I would live in a society, especially here in the States, where we had criminal behavior that is just widely accepted by, at least what you see in the media, is that we shouldn't be enforcing laws. It's just, we should just accept the criminal behavior. And then if we go after the criminals, then somehow we're targeting them, and the poor criminals. It's mind blowing. If someone has a problem with federal agents going in on federal casework and taking down federal suspects, then we have no law enforcement whatsoever at all. We just have a chaos system, and therefore we don't have a system.
Well, right, and it's a problem, and we talked about this earlier when we met up earlier today, about this very topic, where people were like, oh my God, the police are they're wearing all this gear and looking all this way. Well, yeah, officer presence is a thing. Them having a healthy respect from the public keeps violence down. We've talked about this over and over and over again and beat this topic in the ground. There's reasons why things are done. And if you have a question about why, why are the police in this vehicle? Why are the police wearing this? Why are these protesters doing this? Find somebody that maybe is a police officer. Find somebody that has the viewpoint about the protest being a good thing, and go talk to them. And go get viewpoints from people that actually have firsthand knowledge of the topic. And don't just buy what the media shoves down your throat. Don't just go to Fox News. Don't just go to CNN. Find the facts and actually go on a fact-finding mission. Don't sit there and expect the stuff to get spoon-fed to you, because you're getting spoon-fed poop, and that's a problem.
Well, if they're trying to get away from scaring people into anything, let's use guns. We'll use guns and Second Amendment talk for a moment as an example. When you talk about guns, and we can even use the example you just gave with law enforcement presence. Sometimes the certain sections of the populace would like to use the word militarized, or they look militarized or whatnot. To me, that's not a scary look. To me, that's a look from a point of view of not really power, we'll say, but of accountability. And if, airplanes were scary to a lot of people don't want to get into an airplane and fly until they learn more about an airplane and how it works and how safe it is. There's many things that are scary until you know about them. And again, using guns or weapons as an example, a lot of people, will try to label an AR-15 as a scary looking weapon because maybe you've modified it in a certain way. And my opinion of it is not scary to me. I know a lot about them. I know how they operate. There's nothing scary to it. And if you're going to say that the unknown is what's scary, so we should always make everything unknown so there is no scary, I don't know what we're going to do anymore. We've just lost all hope as society if that's the case.
Well, and I've said it over and over again. I think and even one of my really good liberal friends that I talk to, I think we're kind of seeing the pussification of America, the sissification of America, to where people are just, they get in their feelings about everything, and that's why the censorship happens. It's so easy for them to flip a switch, or they could go right on our video right now and hit the delete button, and it's gone. And that's a problem. And that's the whole thing. There's no records being kept anymore. You don't, but of course they did it back in the day where you'd see text being burnt and things like that. If it wasn't, the views that they believed in, the governments and societies that have had this kind of stuff happen, Nazi Germany being one of them, would go around and gather books and all this other stuff. You see it in North Korea and in China and all these other places where even Christians are being targeted and vilified because of a religious belief. And could you imagine if we went around in America and targeted Muslims or targeted Hindus or whoever else and were grabbing their spiritual text and burning it? It's crazy to me. Yeah. But, I think we're kind of seeing that happen in our society right now on different aspects of things. And like you said, the gun thing being another thing, However, I think our society is kind of waking up because we have 2.5 million first-time gun owners, I believe is what hit the news the other day, since January, maybe. And that's a huge number. It's cool. It's good to see people like that finally getting the point. So I don't know.
Yeah, getting to that, just real quick, we'll step away from censorship for just a moment. But one of those numbers that they noted was 3.9 million was purchased, like when Corona first started happening. I guess that was the month of April through a certain time frame. I know it was just a month or two that they were gauging that by. And they had said that 3.9 million weapons were purchased, and a lot of those they felt like were first-time gun purchases. And I'll take that a step further. Those numbers in that study was actually based off of background checks performed by the Federal Bureau of Investigations or the Bureau of ATF. So the concealed carry holders or the weapons carry holders who are not having the actual background checks done, I would say should be at least you should add another 50% or more, maybe even 100% to that number, because it just doesn't take into account people that were not having the background check. So you could be right. They may be waking up to a lot of this. And part of that is people want to feel safer, personal safety, we'll say. Not societal safety, but more of a personal safety, and maybe they're reaching out to purchase firearms for that reason. It's amazing how all this ties into censorship, though, and when you start having the discussion and you start bringing up new topics and things that you wouldn't right away consider, or that even have the ability to be censored, you start to notice that censorship really does start to control many, many aspects of your life. And I think we've pointed out 5 or 6 or maybe more in just maybe the last 20 minutes.
Well, exactly. And then, doing some research for myself on some, issues of censorship in America, to go back to that topic. A lot of people don't understand that the Obama administration was the administration responsible for putting the most amount of sources for reporters in jail. They used the Espionage Act to put all these sources in jail. And a lot of it had to do with blocking reporters from speaking to specific staff, people on a staff, and things like that. And that's a problem. You had George Bush, George W. Bush during his administration. There's been large allegations that he censored climate study stuff. And that's the problem I have, and I'm trying to hit on and trying to take it from a nonpartisan view, is, we can look at all the stuff that all these presidents have done, that our, politicians have done to kind of sway our public point of view. And that's a problem. And that's what I'm trying to encourage everybody to do, is go out and go look at opposing viewpoints. If you feel one way about something very strongly, I would encourage you to go find an article that completely disagrees with what you say, and go read that article through and through. Even if it makes you angry, read it. Educate yourself on an opposing point of view. So if you are faced with it and you want to defend your point of view, you can do it, instead of stomping off and getting ticked off because James knows more about the topic than I do. I'm going to leave and just be like, F it, I'm out. I can't deal with this. You made me so angry, and walk away. And that's why it is so important for us to be able to go research these different points of views.
Yeah, and one of the easy things to point to recently is going to be the whole mask situation in the public. I mean, I want to say there was an article I saw just a few moments ago, right before we went on air, and it was that I want to say maybe it was Trump or someone in his cabinet or the administration was basically asking any conservatives that support him to just go ahead and wear the mask just because, well, it's not going to hurt anything if you wear it, and maybe it'll look good for optics, I guess is what they were really getting at. And to me, it's, you have just as much evidence out there that mask over. I mean, we have years and years and years of data where, and research papers and studies where mask had questionable results, if any results whatsoever. Many of those had pointed to absolutely no result in stopping virus transmission of any sort. And this is, pre-COVID. So let's say this isn't in a situation where we're in such duress. This is over a long period of time where they were able to sit down. They were able to do the studies properly. They didn't have some kind of time constraint on them where they had to stuff the study in to kind of fit what they needed it to fit. And then you see, over the last 4 or 5 months since we've had COVID come into play, you've started to see that, all of the studies are rushed. Before, if I argued something that had very short-term research done on it, someone was coming at me saying, no, you got to have studies for 10 years. You got to have studies for 5 years. You can't use that information. Those very same people will come back at me now and say that, oh, no, they're finding out new data every day. And they did a study that says the mask all work now. And, when was this study done, and how much time did they actually really put into it? And how much data would it take for you to overrule all of the, the mounds and mounds of data from the past? And yep. So, I don't think a lot of massive lessons have been learned, or some quantum leaps in science have happened since we've had Corona come out.
Right.
This is something that's been studied for many, many, many years, things very similar to it. And so to say that we're completely in the dark, and now these, all of a sudden these studies, almost contradict yourself and say that these studies say, hey, we should all wear a mask, and if you're not wearing a mask, or if you say that you don't have to wear a mask and you're going to take hydroxychloroquine instead of what they're proposing as something to take, then we're just going to cut you off, and we're not going to let you have that viewpoint. We're not going to let you share it anywhere. That's a real shame. And also to hide behind the idea that, well, it's a private corporation, so they can allow what they want to on their site. Again, someone with the influence like these social media platforms have, it's a massive shame, and it's a disservice to the public.
Yeah, 100%. And if you want to look at, I'll give you 2 examples of people contradicting themselves to go along with what you were talking about. So you kind of have to take their points and their expertise. Boston School of Medicine. If you go look on, if you just Google, I believe it's Boston School of Medicine. Initially, they came out and said masks have no use outside of surgical setting, right? They came out and said it, and they gave very good reasons of why. Well, then 2 months later, they're like, well, no, masks they're needed. And suddenly they've changed their viewpoint. Well, why have we changed their viewpoint? They didn't give any reason why they did. They just said, we're changing our viewpoint. Fauci, same thing. And I'm going to get to Aaron's point here in a second. Fauci did the same thing. He said early on in this whole thing, well, no, there's no need for us to wear masks. We don't need to do that. And Trump said things that he said and kind of went back on them too. So I'm not going to let him off the hook completely either, where these people are just saying stuff. Just at some point, I wonder if they're just saying it to say it. And that's why I encourage the public and everybody to educate yourselves. Find people that actually are in the medicine field, and talk to them about why they feel the way they do about things. My wife happens to be in the medical field, and she has to wear a mask every day at work. And I know the side effects that come with her wearing a mask every day at work, and face coverings and all this other stuff. And it's a problem. We don't make our kids wear them. It's our own personal decision. And we don't wear them in public unless we absolutely have to. I think I've worn a mask once. I wish we had video of you driving around in your cat mask the other day, going to Target. But, I personally don't wear them much, and people can say, oh, you don't care about other people. Well, that's your opinion. I don't agree with it, but, that's your opinion. And hit on what Aaron said. Christians are being targeted in the U.S. Pro-lifers arrested outside of D.C. for sidewalk chalking. I believe it was in front of a Planned Parenthood place where other groups were not. It's chalk washed away, and they were not on a street but a sidewalk. Maybe it's not as bad as other countries, but it's right here. You're absolutely right, Aaron. It is here. And, I didn't know that it was so bad to not want babies to be killed, but, that's just me and my opinion. Same thing where, you see people getting arrested for defacing a BLM thing in New York for trying to, cover it up because it offends them, when it's one viewpoint. The lady doesn't agree, that the black lady in New York, I forgot her name, she was amazing, screaming what she was screaming, and she was very passionate about it. She got arrested. Granted, she said that's the best she's ever been treated by the police, and they were great to her and everything else. But it's the whole point of why are we not allowing people to voice dissension? If you have a problem with somebody having a dissenting opinion from popular opinion, you are the definition of a sheep. Whether it's me believing something that, it's a popular opinion and I get angry at James and just won't listen to them because it's a dissenting opinion from mine or from popular opinion, that's a problem. And that's part of being free. And that's why, people have to be able to accept criticism. They have to be able to accept things that don't agree with them, or politicians included, the media especially. And they've got to get over it. And they've got to allow people to have their opinions, even if it's offensive to you, allow them to have it. If Planned Parenthood people are offended by people putting pro-life stuff in front of them, so be it. Christians have had to put up with people saying, it's okay, for abortions to happen late term, 8-9 months. All these other things, it's got to go both ways. It cannot be a one-way street. And that is why there's so much censorship going on, even if it's blatant or kind of cloak and dagger, behind closed doors, shadow banning stuff, which happens of things. It's a problem. And it's getting more and more prevalent in America. And to me, it's sending us down the tubes.
Yeah, and again, we get our media from very limited sources, and the news coverage from the major networks is pretty limited viewpoint. And I can point to networks that have very much the same viewpoint. At this point, I can't believe they haven't just merged together to make a big super network, because they pretty much broadcast the exact same biased viewpoint every single day. And then you have it on the other side as well. And I didn't say which side was which there, but you have it on both sides.
Yep.
And I do believe, though, that when you try to bring morality into some of these situations, is where, or what you would consider founded morality, especially if you look back at the founding of the United States itself, founded morality that really set some of the parameters and some of the guidelines that we live by, which are all really good things. I mean, most of the 10 Commandments are just really good principles in themselves. And when you start censoring based on, something that could have a really strong moral value. I mean, let's just say that someone gets offended by saying that murder, should be illegal, right? Murder is illegal. If someone's offended by that, does that mean we make murder legal just so that this person doesn't get offended? And I know that's an extremely hyperbolic example I gave, but I'm not so convinced that it's not, right at our doorstep.
It is, and it's one of those things. It's the slippery slope, that a lot of people have said we're going down. And now you're literally seeing people trying to justify, like we said earlier, that pedophilia is okay. I don't think, again, I keep saying, I don't think we censor that. It needs to be put out there. People need to see it. But again, you need to know that there's those kind of people out there, so you can talk to your children, you can talk to your loved ones, and you can tell them, hey, this is why this is wrong. There are people out there that believe this. And having the hive mind, one viewpoint only mentality is a huge, huge, huge problem. And it allows the evil government, conservative, Democrat, whatever, to take over and to basically just run your life. And you don't need to have your life run by a social media company or by stuff like that. I've taken breaks from social media over the years just because it gets so mind numbing with having to see all the same stuff over and over again. But you've got to educate yourself. I keep saying that. I know I'm beating a dead horse here with that, but again, get out of your echo chambers. Don't be afraid to hear somebody's opposing viewpoint. To my conservative friends, go find your most liberal friend that you're friends with before you knew they were a liberal. Go sit down and have dinner with them. Go talk to them. Just talk. And you'd be surprised what you can get to. One of my best friends that watches the podcast every week, sometimes he wants to strangle me, Derek. He's very opposite from me in a lot of ways, but some of the best, most just growthful conversations I have with anybody are with him, because he's a grown ass man and he can talk about things, even if they tick him off. He'll talk to me, give me his viewpoints. We may not agree with each other. And we've had several conversations where we're like, hey, agree to disagree. Let's pick this up later, because we don't want to scream at each other and cuss each other out. But it's kind of letting me see his point of views. And he said, I've changed his point of view on things. I think it's kind of gone both ways, because you're getting those opposing viewpoints. It goes back, like I said, opposing views, when discussed civilly, breed unity. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that 90% of America pretty much believes the same thing. I think you have your extremists on either side that really just are way far one way or way far the other way, and it's a problem. But I really think most of us kind of believe the same thing. But the censorship that we keep talking about, the lack of responsible reporting on both sides, is causing so much division in America, and it's created havoc. I mean, look at our society right now. It's unbelievable where we're at.
Yeah, it's a real shame that again that it's not necessarily just about two people debating one thing or two people trying to come to some kind of agreement, because at the end of the day a lot of disagreements are going to remain disagreements. And I think that that's part of what makes America a really great place to be, is that in the past, at least, whether at least we've had the illusion that in the past until very recently, that we were able to have these kind of discussions, or we were able to have opposing viewpoints, and it didn't necessarily harm anyone in any kind of physical way. Now, when we start talking about emotions, you bring so much opinion into that argument, that if I'm always trying to limit either what I'm doing, or I have to tiptoe around what I'm doing so that it doesn't offend someone else or someone else's feelings doesn't get hurt, then it kind of takes away from the actual reality that we live in. And the reality that we live in is that the world can be a tough place. Ultimately, it's you on your own that's responsible for making it, from your birth all the way to your grave, and trying to do the best stuff that you can in between. If you don't have some kind of of mechanism inside you that can somewhat shut off some of the feelings, and try to civilly either view someone's point of view. If you don't like it, there's a couple of ideas. Don't talk to them. Don't put yourself around that, or just be okay with not having the same idea as someone else, or someone else expressing their point of view to you. And this is one of the things that of course, we could talk about this for another hour, and like you said earlier, we'd be beating a dead horse with it. But I don't think there's ever going to be a total answer for it, other than everyone just needs to, more than anything, kind of take care of themselves, look after themselves, do what they feel is best for themselves, and stop trying to dictate what everyone else is doing around you, or stop trying to dictate what everyone else is even thinking around you. And that's a real problem.
Yep. Yeah. It's funny. One of my good friends, Damien, that actually got me into podcasting in the first place. I was a guest on his show, I think a week before we did our first episode. He and I used to just disagree on everything. Damien has he still has certain things that he believes that I don't necessarily believe, and that's fine. But at least surrounding myself with somebody like that, again, it just keeps making me grow. It makes you grow as a human, and just makes you level up, I guess is a good way to put it, for my people that do gaming and stuff out there. And over the years, I've seen, him grow even more and become just an amazing, super knowledgeable person because of the things and taking opposing viewpoints. He used to be one way this way. Now he's like way more center. He never really swung another way, but he was way out some way and then came back and said, I'm like, yeah, I can talk to this guy and learn a lot from him. And I think we learn from each other constantly. We go to each other with problems and things we may have, again, because we're not afraid to hear an opposing viewpoint. But those viewpoints weren't out there. I'm telling you, the dissension in this country will get worse and worse and worse and worse, and we have to have them.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think the best we can hope for is that it gets so bad that the people that support it eventually realize that it affects them, and maybe they wake up to see that this censorship thing is not everything that they thought it would be. Again, it's like trying to make everything so equal. What you end up doing is you stifle industry, you stifle imagination, you stifle creativity in an effort to try to make everything equal all the time. And typically, we're never going to get to a point in America where we've made everyone equally rich, but we very easily, through censorship, could get to a point where we've made everyone equally poor. And that's not necessarily talking monetary as well. I mean, that's talking about every facet of your life.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. And it's just, we've got to be able to do that. And it's just, like you said, I think us dumbing down society is going to create mediocrity, is going to create dependence on the government to take care of you, which, there's some sects, and I'm one of them that believe that the more dependent, obviously, that the government has you, the happier they are, because there's portions of the government that don't want you to be an independent thinker, that don't want you to be able to think for yourself. There are people in the government right now, if you go research it, that think owning too much land should be illegal. Unbelievable. There's cities, Minneapolis being one of them, that is trying to legislate mandated multifamily, multi-unit housing. And just basically saying that, it's bad for people to, have money. It's bad for people to own a house. It's bad for you to have, I've got an acre and a half where I live. I guess in some places, I'm a bigot because I have land. I don't know. But it's hilarious, but I can at least take that back and go research. Why do these people believe this? What's their ideology behind it? And quickly you find Marxism, socialism, communism, all these things. You're like, oh, that's what that person is. But if they weren't putting their viewpoint out there and I couldn't hear it and I see that person in the street, I'm not going to know who they are. If I see them on TV and I can't see this viewpoint because the news only allows one of it, I'm not going to know who it is. So all the people out there, maybe the few people that watch our podcast that dislike the president right now, if the media was all pro-Trump and never put any of his missteps out there, because Trump said some dumb shit, and I'm just being real, he said some things that you're just like, oh God, why do you say that? No matter how you feel, you can't form an opinion of the man. Imagine if the media only put the good stuff that he did on the news of what it would cause. But we got to do that for both presidents. We can't do it just for Trump and not do it for Obama or who's ever going to succeed Trump, in 2024, wink, wink. But you've got to have those viewpoints. And I'm pretty much done with that.
Yeah, just think, at the end of the day, you want to think for yourself, and as much as you have your own beliefs, you have your own opinions, you have your own thoughts and feelings about things, you have to understand that other individuals are going to be the exact same way, and they are obviously not always going to line up with what your opinions are. But I do believe that at some point we have to get back to at least a standard of morality or a standard of values here in America, and I think that was something that the country was founded on.
Yep.
I think we've made progress ever since the country was founded. Anyone that wants to argue that the United States has not progressed forward since, let's say, even the Civil Rights Movement, they're just absolutely wrong. I mean, that's just a false statement. America's always been, let's say the shining beacon on the hill, or I've had someone mention that to me recently, that America's not the shiny beacon on the hill anymore. And, I see every day there's a lot of good going on. If you watch the media, you might think that, that it's quite the opposite. But as long as we're continuing to strive forward, as long as we're continuing to evolve forward, as long as, I think most citizens on a daily basis look to make their lives better. I think naturally and inherently, I think most people are generally pretty good and good-hearted as well. So as long as we can keep that going and we don't lose sight of at least that, some moral value or some moral code here in the United States, then we can continue to make it a better place. But you're never going to have any of what I just said if you have the number one dominating power source, which is the media right now, which is social media, or widely becoming social media very quickly. If everything that you see that's posted is gloom and doom and how bad the United States is at this, how bad the U.S. is at that, how this guy said this, how this is terrible, how this is going on, and this is horrible, and this is hurting people, and you're not hearing the other side of the story, then we're gonna wake up one day and we're gonna find that we don't have any America left.
Buddy, I couldn't agree more, and I think it's definitely a good way to start closing it out. If our audience doesn't have any other questions, just let us know. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we've got to get back to what made us great, and that was having opposing views, and that was having debates, and being able to be men and be able to be women and sit down and talk about things. Again, for those of y'all that are getting angry at everybody and hating everybody because they have opposing viewpoints, go sit down and have dinner with those folks. We always try to end this on a positive note. Don't let the government, don't let the media divide you from your friends just because they don't believe something you believe. Go talk to them, work things out, man. That's, that's just what you're supposed to do. Be a grown man, be a grown woman, and be done with it. And that's kind of where I'm at with it at this point. And I think, again, the censorship, it just dumbs us all down as society. It makes us mediocre. I don't believe our country is mediocre. I believe it's imperfect. I believe we've had things in the past that have been horrible, but I believe we've had a lot of things that are great. And to kind of hit on what you did, that's what makes our country American. That's what makes it so awesome and a great place for us to live, and great place for the vast majority of people to live. We have things we need to improve on, but yes, we don't need to lose what we have, man. It's so crazy right now where we're at. Let's talk about some upcoming guests. Let's talk about the training class. Let's talk about the veteran we have coming on the show. I want you to talk about him a little bit. We don't want to give away too much, but we'll talk about kind of who he is a little bit and what we're going to have to offer here in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, so it's in the works still, and I don't want to reveal too much because I've not completely nailed it down with the actual guest, but I'm pretty confident that is going to be the case. But we've got a longtime military vet that's going to be coming on to the show with any luck here, and I think he's got a very unique story to tell. I think he has a very humble story to tell, and if you fast forward, I don't want to give away too much, but there's a really strong to me. It's a very important um, uh, outcome, so to speak, and it's still in progress, we'll say, but
Yep.
it's just something that I have a lot of respect for. I think it's going to be a great guest to have on the show. He's going to be able to tell a terrific story from many different viewpoints, and I think it'll be something that a lot of people need to hear, and it may be something that a lot of people haven't really sat down and listened to.
That's good. That's good. And again, we've got some other people in the works, so we got to work out some politicians, believe it or not, that are debating on coming on the show to kind of talk to us a little bit. I've got some other people that have some opposing viewpoints from us that we're asking to come on. I think that's something we're probably going to do once we can nail down a topic to talk about, so we don't just kind of talk ourselves in circles. For those of y'all local in the Metro Atlanta area, I know a lot of our fans are from there. James and I are doing a class this Friday at 6:30 p.m. at his gym. It's James BJJ. Just Google it. You can find the address. James, I'll let you give it out. It's from 6:30 to 8. We're doing an introduction to firearms class. We're going to cover all things firearms, cover firearms ownership, responsible ownership, safety, law, basic usage, and things like that. And we're going to kind of keep trying to grow this thing. So if you have somebody that you want to come take the class, have them get in touch with James on his Facebook or me on my Facebook, or hit us up on the Unfiltered Truth page if you don't happen to be friends with one of us on Facebook, and ask us, hey, you want to come to your class? It's $20 for an hour and a half. You're going to get some really good instruction, and you're going to learn. I promise you'll learn something. If you don't, I'll give you your money back. I'm that confident in it. And yeah, come see us, man. It's going to be good, and hopefully here we're nailing down some things where we can do some actual live fire training soon. And I'll leave the last word with you, James.
Yeah, so I'm going to give a shout out back to some of our sponsors again here, guys. So anyone has any printing needs, go ask for Jason over at Peach State Printing. They're in Hiram, Georgia. They do everything under the sun. If it can be printed on some kind of medium, then they can do it for you. So that number again is 770-439-0335. That's 770-439-0335. Let them know that the Unfiltered Truth sent you. Also, give a shout out to North Cobb Spine and Nerve. They've made some generous donations to us to help us with the show. Again, their web address is www.northcobbspine.com. And that phone number over there is 678-574-5678. That's 678-574-5678. These beautiful artwork that we have behind us here, I'm going to kind of move out of the way a little bit so we can see it, but we've got these, and these are really nice millwork artistic pieces done on flags. I'm not going to say that they're limited to just flags. If you look into Eric's window there, you're going to see he has one that's a little different than mine is. These were custom made by a lady named Chantel Pelzer. And I want to go ahead and give her email address out for that. If you guys, you can also contact us here in the comment section. We can get you in touch with her if these are something that may interest you. They're beautiful pieces of art. They're stunning in live. So sitting in the room with it here, it does it much more justice than probably seeing it on that screen. But that's Chantel at chantelcreations.com, and Chantel is SHANTEL at chantelcreations.com. So we've got it up there on the screen for you. So give them a shout out. We couldn't put on the show if we didn't have the support of these wonderful sponsors and some others that we'll be getting to in the future episodes. So a lot of big stuff coming with our training sessions. Like Eric said, the first one's going to be this Friday, 6:30 to 8. And if you guys are interested in that, just hit us up in the comments. You can catch either one of us on our Facebook pages. Mine's James Shook, and then you've got Eric Smith there, or you can catch us on the Unfiltered Truth. Shoot us a message. put a comment, throw it on the wall. You can get in touch with us. It's a $20 charge, as Eric mentioned earlier, and we're going to be covering some really good stuff. For anyone that's new to weapons, or maybe you just recently bought your first carry weapon, most specifically, Eric's going to have a lot of really good instruction for you. He's got a lot of experience, and I think it'll be a good time. You'll learn a lot, and and bring some friends with you as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Catch us next week. We should be here same time. We took last week off because kids were going back to school, so we kind of want to hang with them. But we should be back next week, and you'll get to hear a topic as soon as we know it. We'll put it up there for you guys. And thanks as always for those of y'all that tune in and listen to James and I ramble on for an hour and a half, 2 hours. We can't say how much we appreciate you. And thanks for watching. Y'all support, like James said, means everything.
Thanks a lot, guys.
And